and welcome to World Cup Day 9, and what a day it was yesterday. It was quite a lot of goals, a lot more goals than normal, I think. Quite welcome at this point in the World Cup. We're heading towards the final group stage games, and we'll talk today about Cameroon, Serbia. We've got South Korea against Ghana, and then Brazil, Switzerland, and Portugal, Uruguay, both of which I wasn't really able to watch much of, which is a shame. But yeah, that's what we've got today, and we're also going to preview tonight's games between the England and Wales game and Iran, USA, and Group A as well, which has Netherlands and Qatar, and it's all off the top of my head, and it's not coming to me. And the other two teams in that group, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, or later. So to start with, Cameroon against Serbia was the first game of the day, and it ended up finishing 3-3. So if you'd have seen yesterday's vlog, I was recording that vlog as the game was happening, and Cameroon actually went 1-0 up, and you'd think, this is great, they're going to set up a massive upset and they'll be able to win this game, and then they seemed to crumble. Either side of half-time, they conceded 3 goals in really quick succession, I think it's about 5 or so game minutes, and it went to pieces for them. So twice at the end of the half, and there were moments as well where Serbia could have scored a third at the end of the first half. They didn't. Then they scored again at the start of the second, and you're thinking that's probably game over. Serbia got this locked down. But then something changed in the Serbia team, in the Cameroon team, where they played 2 up front. So they have Abubakar and Mbeumo up front, and that has changed. That changed quite a lot in the team. Abubakar scoring one of the goals where he was in on goal, and I'm pretty sure he thought he was offside. But he goes in and he scores. He kind of lobs the goalkeeper with a lovely little scoop shot, which you only usually see in like 5-a-side tournaments and things like that, or like really casual games of football, not the World Cup. So probably one of the most impudent and casual World Cup goals ever, I think. But it was a fantastic finish, and it turns out he was onside because the right back He played them on, and actually this happened twice. So he didn't just play him on for the first goal, in the second half to make it 3-2. He also played the Cameroon players onside for the second goal, so their third goal in the second half. But they just did not defend well at all when they tried to play the high line Serbia, which they didn't really need to do. I think they could easily have just kind of taken a few yards back, make sure they weren't caught on the counter, and they probably would have won this game. But that's the only time, and it happened twice, where Abubakar ran on the right-hand side and the right back for the other team on the other side of the pitch was just lagging behind slightly when the rest of the team wanted to step up and play the offside trap. And that's why they were caught onside rather than offside there. And it was a simple square ball to finish for the second goal, and that meant that it finished 3-3. It was a bit of a scramble towards the end. Both teams had chances to win the game, but I think a draw is probably fair. And unfortunately, I think a draw only helps Switzerland. It doesn't really help either of these two teams. I think if Cameroon were going to go through, they really had to win this game and then hope for a set of results that would have favoured them. But unfortunately, I think it's unlikely now that will happen because they've got Brazil next, and they know they have to win to qualify. They will not win against Brazil. So it's likely, I think, that we're going to see Cameroon out. Serbia against Switzerland obviously is winner takes all really in that game. But it's also quite a meaty game politically speaking. So we'll talk about that a bit later when we're about to come on to that game. I think that game's the next games in this group are being played on Thursday. Friday. I think it's Friday. Yeah. They're being played on Friday, so that will be an interesting watch, definitely. So, Korea, Ghana. A win for Ghana, which I don't think many people saw coming in this game, especially after the way that Korea have played and the players they've got. They have got a lot of really good players. This was another really kind of topsy-turvy back and forth game. Cho opened the scoring from some terrible defending from Ghana. He didn't score. He didn't open the scoring, sorry. Ghana's set pieces just kind of outdid South Korea on height. They just absolutely nailed them on height, and they won two. They scored 2 goals, 2-0, and you think, yep, that's game over. On to the next one, and that's not how it worked out. Cho hit back with some lovely, actually some just crosses, some really good deliveries from South Korea in this game. Really surprising they only scored twice actually from these crosses. They were just deep crosses swung in, but making sure that they always went over the line of the defence. So it wasn't just one player who could potentially get on the ball, it was 3 or 4. And Cho leapt highest. I loved his second goal, where he just kind of leaps, and he kind of uses the leverage of the defender as well, but the defender just watches the ball. And this is my big criticism of Ghana defending these set pieces. They just kind of watched as it happened. They watched the ball come towards them and thought someone will deal with it. And then obviously no one deals with it, and South Korea scored. Cho scored twice from that exact problem. So South Korea get back to 2-2. You're thinking, okay, they've got this back. They've got the momentum now. They'll probably go on and win the game. Not so. Ghana end up scoring again from Mohamed Kudus, who is one of the bright shining stars of the Champions League so far in Europe, and he's playing for Ajax. It's a really, really, really exciting player, and it's fantastic to see that he's playing for Ghana as well, because Ghana historically have had some exciting talents in the past, but they've never been allowed to shine really in that team. This is a player who, if Ghana do get through to the last 16, I can see being a bit of a star for this tournament, possibly. I think there was a couple of times before this goal where Ghana opened up a 2v1 on Korea's right hand side, and that ended up being the problem for this goal, because again they opened the 2v1, got a slid ball into the box behind the defenders, so they couldn't get a touch onto it. A couple of strikers missed the ball, and then it came to Kudus, and he slotted it home. And as soon as it came to Kudus, I was like, yeah, he's going to score. He's definitely going to score this. And the other two missed it, but he'll score. And he did. He did a really, really good job. And you can tell from my face, it was a magnificent moment. Probably one of my favourite moments in this World Cup so far, I think. And I can't... The next game is... you couldn't have made this up. Is Ghana playing Uruguay, and the winner of that will qualify for the last 16. And I think if it's a draw, I'm pretty sure that... actually, no, I don't know. I need to look at the tables. But I'm pretty sure if it's a draw, that Ghana would go through. I'm not sure what Uruguay's other result was. I feel like Uruguay are on 1 point from memory, but I'm going to look this up now. I should have probably had these up at some point before. Here we go. Groups and schedule. So Ghana, yeah, I was right. So Uruguay drew their game against South Korea, and with Ghana beating South Korea, that means that Uruguay have to beat Ghana, so that's going to be really exciting. But I would expect Ghana still to go at the game and try to kind of dominate, and that may be their undoing, possibly. Uruguay are so clever and cheeky when it comes to playing big matches. They will hit on the counter so often. The only problem they've got these days, they've got Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani, and they're not that fast now. They're really, really old, and I don't think they can really pull off the same tactics as they did before. If they can try and control the game, which Ghana might allow them to do, that will mean that this team could actually, they could possibly they could possibly win this game just through sheer control of the game, I think. So the last two games, which I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit, but not too much, because they both went the way that I thought they would. Brazil against Switzerland. Brazil seemed to stutter a bit in this game. I was talking to someone who's actually Brazilian who was extremely nervous going into this game, and I told them, "Why are you nervous? You'll win. You'll definitely win this game." And they did. Casemiro with a lovely finisher inside the box. But it just, there's not really a lot to talk about here. Neymar's absence did show, I think, a little bit in the way that Brazil tactically set up. But I would have thought it would have been easy to kind of stop that from being an issue. I was going to say that. I did watch the first half, and it looked like Brazil definitely were missing a spark. They were missing something. And I think it might be the fact that everyone else has been so used to playing under Neymar's shadow, they're taking a while just to come out from underneath it. Vinicius Jr., I think, had a goal ruled for offside, which was a very early offside in the play, but it was offside. Whether Brazil, to be honest, I think they're through now, and they're very likely to win the group, which means that I think you could probably say pretty safely that they're going to just rest players in the final game, I would expect. Just rotate, and they could afford to rotate and still put out a really strong team. So we'll wait and see for what they do in the last 16. I think that's when they'll really be tested, because they'll be playing second place in the other group, which contains Portugal and Uruguay. And I did watch towards the end of that game, and I think it was the penalty. Yes, it was the penalty that was handball against Uruguay, which was not a penalty. Even in the rules of the game, what happened there was Fernandes nutmegs the defender, brilliant play, and then the defender falls backwards, as you do, but he tries to use his hand to stop his fall. And then the ball catches his hand on its way through. Obviously, Fernandes, if that hadn't happened, would have probably got the ball to the side of the defender and maybe in on goal. So there is a chance that you could say he denied a goal scoring opportunity. Fine. But in the rules of the game, it's not a foul because he's preventing his fall. I don't think there's a way you can deliberately manipulate that to be able to actually handball the ball and stop it from going to Fernandes again. But still, it's just in the laws. They've just interpreted it wrong. And that is a massive shame because it kind of ruined the last kind of 5 minutes of the game, really. But it's got to be said. I think Portugal deserved it because the way they attacked. I haven't really seen much of the highlights. I've seen a few. The Portugal attacked all the way through the first half. Uruguay just sat back, and they paid the price for being so negative. And this Portuguese team aren't known for attacking that much. But they actually did attack quite a lot in this game, which I was really surprised at. So Portugal are through. They've also got 6 points from 6, as have Brazil. That means that we're going to be seeing probably Portugal and Brazil in opposite sides of the draw, because one of them is going to be... they're both going to be winning their groups, but essentially. So... it's looking like, and my bet would be Switzerland to be finishing second in the Brazil group, which would mean it would be a Switzerland-Portugal last 16 game, which I would expect Portugal to win, and a Brazil-Ghana. I want Ghana to go through because I think there's such a fairy tale country in this tournament. But I suppose I'll have to wait and see. Those games are happening on Friday. Friday afternoon for Portugal, Ghana, South Korea, Uruguay, and then Friday evening for Brazil, Switzerland, Cameroon, Serbia. So, deep breath. We're going to be talking a little bit about who the best team is first in this World Cup so far. I think I might have said France is my number one favourite to win this tournament before. And they have actually... It's interesting to note the 3 teams that have qualified automatically already after 2 games are France, Brazil and Portugal. No one else has, as far as I'm aware. That is quite big, and it kind of says a lot, I think, about the quality of I think Portugal's a weird one because I don't think they've actually played that well. But also, I think they're in a really easy group for them, really. In comparison, like Ghana, Uruguay have been below what you'd expect them to be, and Ghana and South Korea are teams that you'd expect Portugal to beat. So it is kind of a bit different for them, whereas France, I'm not saying that France haven't had an easy group, I think they've had a relatively easy group as well, but they've also looked really good in that easy group. They've dominated both of their games. The game against Denmark was a close one, but I do think they deserve to win that. I didn't know how Denmark managed to stay in that game. And then who was it? And Brazil also looked very good as well. So my kind of pre-World Cup predictions are kind of holding true, really, where France and Brazil are probably the two big favourites in this tournament. If they go out, then it could well be anyone's to win this. But I'm sticking with France. I think they're the best team, and Brazil could well play them in the semi-finals, especially if they win their group as well. Right, moving on to today's games. Now we're currently we're at like 12 on Tuesday afternoon. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Netherlands, Ecuador, Senegal group with Qatar, who are out, but Netherlands are playing Qatar. I've heard some people tipping Qatar to get a point against this Netherlands team. I'm like, what? No way. This Netherlands team is going to wipe the floor with the Qatar team. They're going to absolutely wipe the floor with them. These games are happening in a few hours, so you might not actually get to watch this before these actually happen. Netherlands are playing Qatar. I'd expect a 3 or 4-0 win for the Netherlands. And Ecuador-Senegal is the big one. It's the one that we called right at the beginning of this group stage as a game to watch. It's a game that you really need to keep an eye on because it will decide who finishes second in the group. Senegal had to go out and win this. Ecuador can draw and still go through. So I'm backing Ecuador to win this, just because they do have a bit of firepower up front, but they've also got that staunch defence that I don't really think Senegal have. Like, if you look at their previous games, they've lost 2-0 to the Netherlands, albeit I think quite unluckily. I don't think they necessarily deserve to lose that game. And then they conceded against Qatar as well. So I don't think they're keeping a clean sheet against this Ecuador team, so it's probably going to be Ecuador going through. And then as far as Group B are concerned, this is the big one. England are playing Wales, which, if you don't know, England have played Wales in the Euros when was it? It was in 2016. And it was really weird because the result of this game doesn't really paint a picture of how the tournament really goes, because Wales lost that game through a really late Daniel Sturridge goal. But England went out to Iceland in the next rounds, whereas Wales went all the way to the semi-finals. So it does kind of paint a false picture of how that tournament went for both teams. But since then, the two teams have gone in opposite directions. So Wales have gone downwards from there. That's been the kind of wave that they've been riding for the last kind of 6 years, pretty much. Whereas England have been going up since then. Their appearance at the 2018 World Cup, they came to the semi-finals. 2020 Euro 2020, they came to the final. So this time we don't know what will happen with England, but again, they've done a lot better than Wales in the recent past. In terms of a head-to-head matchup, I mean, if you took that away and just talked about on paper, England should win this. They should win this, hands down. On the head-to-head, though, in terms of tactics and in terms of the atmosphere of the game, it might be quite difficult for England to win, just purely because Wales will be as stubborn as they can. Just because Wales will be as stubborn as they can in this. I think England have got a good chance obviously they've got a great chance of winning it, but Wales could nick a goal and make it very difficult for this England team. They've got the capability to do it. The thing is, though, this Welsh team don't look that defensively good. In their 2 games they've had so far, they played shockingly against the United States in the first half and somehow managed to claw that back to draw that game 1-1. but they should have been 3 or 4-0 down by half time. And then they lost 2-0 to Iran, and they were shocking in that game as well, and they could have conceded another few more in that game. So to think that England won't, logically, and obviously I'm English, so this is a little bit biased, but I can't see how England play this game and not score a few goals. Just the end of, I think that's how it's going to go. They've got strength from set pieces, they've got strength from open play, and combine that with the fact that Wales have not defended well this entire tournament, says to me, surely England score some goals here. And if they do, they'll be through, no question. The only thing that can knock England out of this tournament is a 4-0 defeat, or a defeat by 4 goals to this Welsh team. And that is not going to happen. It would blow so many predictions out of the water. It would be completely irrepresentative of everything that's happened before. So I think it's fair to say Wales themselves are just looking for a win, though, to stay in the tournament. If they win and Iran draw against the United States, they go through and knock those 2 teams out. It'll be interesting to see towards the end of these, because these games are being played concurrently as well, it's worth mentioning. It'll be interesting to see if Iran are drawing with the US and then Wales go ahead against England at any point in this game. What happens in that Iran-US game? Do both teams start to suddenly go for it because they realise they need to win now because Wales are beating England? That's a possibility, absolutely a possibility at this stage. But why would you... I'm trying to think what would this... what would it look like if that happened? It would be crazy. I think it would be kind of cat amongst pigeons territory, definitely. So, Iran-US then. So I talked a bit about Wales-England. Again, I'm expecting an England win, but we'll see what happens with that. Iran-US, I think Iran are going to win this. And this is the thing. I think if there is a winner between, I know this, if there's a winner between Iran and the US, then England do have some win to top the group. Is that something that they're particularly bothered about? We'll find out when the Netherlands play their group and whether they can win their group. Because if they can, then I think England probably don't want to play them, but I personally don't think the Netherlands are all that good. Having watched their games, they've got players that look good on paper, but as a team, they don't look convincing at all. They're definitely not convincing. And that will probably be the thing that will make England probably not care too much about this game against Wales, and they just need to make sure they turn up and don't lose 4-0. That's basically it, really, because then they'll be through. So, but Iran just seem to have this momentum behind them, and the US have got a good team on paper, but they have not proved it yet. They couldn't put away Wales. They couldn't put away England. They probably should have done both. They could easily be sitting top of this group with 6 points right now. I don't think the United States have done themselves any favours at all in this group. So if they do go out, I think it is on them, really, because they've got the players to do what they need to do, and that is to finish top 2 in this group. Absolutely. Iran, I mean, there's so much political turmoil going on in the background of this team. I'm thinking about it. If England had this kind of thing going on behind them, I don't think they'll be able to perform. So I'm actually really, really impressed by this Iran team. Full respect to them. They've done a fantastic job of even getting to this position, especially after losing 6-2 to England to start with. Iran are a good team. They're fighters. They're absolute fighters, and that's what they'll need against this US team. Because I do think that technically this US team are probably one of the best that we've seen. But whether the US have the capability, the psychological capabilities to control games, we'll have to wait and see on that one. I think this World Cup will be a really good kind of education for a lot of these players. A lot of them are really young. Think about Timothy Weah. Think about I know he's not playing, but Gio Reyna, even Christian Pulisic, who probably won't be at Chelsea, I think, by the time the next World Cup comes around. I'd be very surprised if he is. and I'm thinking of a few other players that are playing as well. The back line. I think the US are a team that's ready to build for that next World Cup at home, and that'll be a really interesting process to watch over the next 4 years. But as far as this game is concerned, I think we're just watching a US team that are not able to play their best purely from a psychological point of view. I think that's what's letting them down a little bit. So that is today's games. The Group A will be kicking off at 3, and then Group B will be kicking off at 7. A lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to today's games. I'll be able to watch all of them, which will be great. But whether by the end of today we'll know who England, if England go through, they should go through. If England go through, who will they be playing in the last 16, and when will they be playing that? So yeah, if you've got any comments about what I've said, any kind of questions, do you think, looking back on yesterday's games, are Brazil actually good enough to be winning the World Cup? Can Portugal get much further than the quarterfinals in this tournament? And will Ghana qualify as well? And what are your predictions for the England game tonight? And we'll see what happens with that one. But if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you want to see more of what I'm doing, please subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified of every time I put up a video. And I'll see you tomorrow for the next round of games.